We'll call the regular meeting of November 23rd, 2021 to order. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Sean Douglas.
Here.
Michael Howry.
Here.
Michelle Hayes.
Here.
Brian Horvath.
Here.
Gene Sensi.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michael Howry.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Brian Horvath.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
All right, we'll move into board member reports. And to start that, we're going to begin with, we have moments of silence. It's always sad to learn of someone's passing. Last month, the Madison local schools lost two of those family members, Trudy Caswell and Grace Palmer. Trudy Caswell, who was a bus driver for our district for 10 years, passed away on October 25th, 2021. Trudy was born on June 14th, 1945 in Germany. She married her husband Joseph in 1967. Trudy enjoyed German cooking for her family and was president of the Ladies Auxiliary of the Veterans of Foreign Wars at Post 8548. Trudy will be missed by her husband, her children Claudia, Ralph, and John, as well as her brother and her many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Grace Palmer was born May 30th, 1926 in Pennsylvania and passed away on October 26, 2021. Grace worked as a registered nurse for Geneva Hospital and as a school nurse for the Madison local schools. She also volunteered for Hospice of the Western Reserve, Madison Public Library, Meals on Wheels, and the Madison Food Bank. Grace was also an active member of Chapel United Methodist Church. Grace will be missed by her daughter Gail and son Walter, as well as her many grandchildren and friends. All of us at Madison extend our sincerest sympathy to the family and friends of Trudy Caswell and Grace Palmer. Please join the board in a moment of silence in their memories. All right, thank you. Are there any board members wishing to give a report this evening?
All right, you can hear me okay out there? I want to wish the superintendent and assistant superintendent and the treasurer and my fellow board members well in 2022. It's been a privilege to serve alongside you, such caring and competent people, and a privilege to serve Madison schools, parents, and excellent teachers educating our students. I ran on the banner of community involvement, and I believe this same theme is the encouragement with which I wish to leave the board, albeit with some significant challenges facing you. Not because they're currently present in Madison schools, but because many parents are concerned about the larger narrative being played out in government and school districts across our nation. So I believe that the next year should be a year of greater connection with parents, and I commend our president, Sean Douglas, for his leadership and the professional way he responds to parents' concerns. And I believe our superintendent in forming a parents' advisory team, curriculum team, is also a helpful step, and I am privileged to be associated with these two great leaders. However, I do believe that there will continue to be ways and a need for brainstorming to connect with parents for unfiltered roundtable discussion that could result in such rich dividends like trust building. There's nothing quite like face-to-face conversation around a round table. rather than addressing people on a raised platform behind a table. And so I think just that ongoing connection is important. There's a couple concerns that parents have, not because they're, like I say, they're necessarily present here, but that's just the point. The uncertainty and the fear of the direction on certain issues are just that, concerns that need to be addressed. Because parents were called domestic terrorists and told by at least one governor that parents should leave the educating to the professionals, parents want to know exactly what is believed and what the boundaries are going forward. So there are philosophical and moral tentacles to the issues of textbooks and curriculum, I understand that, but they have to be navigated. It is documented that new textbooks are being written with highly charged political and moral issues. The pressure has been felt right next door in Mentor, and I certainly am well aware of it taking place down in Columbus. The fact that it has not yet come to Madison doesn't mean that it never will. It's sometimes just the uncertainty of where the board stands on things that raises questions. And the concern is not just with textbooks, but teacher training programs. So I'll be real specific. Topics like sex and gender, which are the hot button issues of our day. I was stopped by a dad at a mechanic shop here in Madison just this past week. And he said to me, I'm going to be very bold here and very blunt, if another parent wants to believe and encourage a sex change among their child, they have the right, but don't push such things in the classroom on my child or tell my child that his parents are racist if they don't agree. They just want to know, where's the boundary, who establishes it, what are the facts, what will you allow, and they certainly are concerned. Another specific is the controversial critical race theory and the Marxist socialist agenda that is its underpinning. And this theory may not be alive in its original 1990s academic version, but it's morphed, it's alive, and so I've heard from parents question, will revisionist American history be brought to Madison? The kind of philosophy that tears down statues and believes that being white is the cause of society's ills. Clearly articulating what we believe, will allow, or what we will guard against is critical. And since we've had at least only one that I know of teacher be recorded who was clearly pushing personal political views, parents want to know, whatever side they're on in the political spectrum, they want to know with confidence that this will not become a regular practice in the future. So what does it mean to educate? To teach kids how to think instead of what to think? Now, I don't believe for a second that it's widespread at all, and I believe we have good leadership here at Madison. But parents want confidence going forward that it won't become a problem. Finally, the ever-present school finances. Our treasurer has been extremely available to questions and requests for information, and the last opportunity we provided for parents at our church was not well attended. However, we know as a board we cannot give up. Understanding the complexities of school finance and, more importantly, deciding on a vision that voters will support is strategically necessary, and I believe all these things will be forthcoming. Certainly, the outcome of the last levy demonstrated that raising taxes is not popular, and work is being done. So I say to parents, I say to the board and the administration, let's continue to pull together, and we're going to accomplish great things. And this is not even the pressing issues that confront us daily, like all-day kindergarten and class electives in the state of buildings. However, I'm absolutely confident that with our leadership and your support, and you're raising the questions and the ongoing conversation that benefits all of us, we are Madison and we can move forward in a positive way. So thank you for your participation. Thank you for the privilege that I've had of serving alongside you. It's been a joy, it's been a learning experience, it's been fun. I support you and I thank you for the opportunity. And as a pastor, I'll say, God bless you.
Thank you. Are there any other board members wishing to give a report tonight? All right, so we have I know a lot of people are here because we're going to be revisiting the masking policy tonight. There is an item on the agenda regarding that. I'm going to read that just so folks are aware of what the board will be considering this evening. It's to modify the Return to Learn plan to include an optional masking policy at Madison Middle and Madison High School for students and visitors beginning November 29th, and North and South Elementary Schools beginning January 5th, 2000, what should read 22, it reads 21. Also, masking at the board meetings would be optional. So that's something we're going to consider shortly. Our recent board meetings, we've had folks asking questions throughout the meeting while we're trying to conduct business. We would ask that those questions and/or comments be confined to the public comment section. We did ask people to register. We had 6 people register tonight to speak, and so we're going to move into that shortly. Just to remind everybody about our public participation process, there's 5 minutes per speaker, 30 minutes maximum time allotment for the public participation portion. A recent question as to whether people can lend their time to other people to stack time. That's not the intent of our policy, so that's not something we would do today or at any meeting. So having said that, we'll now open the first public participation portion, and our first speaker is Daisy Moles.
Okay. Hello. All right. Thank you, Michael Hari, for that speech. It was really nice to hear just a lot of those comments, and those are all the concerns with the community, and I appreciate you bringing them forth, and that we can hopefully work together through some of those issues. As a parent and also as a representative of the Madison Parents' Choice community, for the board today, I demand that this board immediately restore parental authority and abolish the unlawful and abusive forced masking of our children today. To be clear, I'm not asking, pleading, suggesting, or compromising. Parents' choice gets restored today. With all due respect, some of you on this board do not understand the limits of your authority as elected members of the school board. Your mask mandates are arbitrary and unintelligent. They are teaching our children to ignore obvious inconsistencies, to give up their bodily autonomy to any authority figure, grooming them for God knows what in the future. These mandates are conditioning our children to be obedient beyond any reasonable measure that is healthy or good for a free society, although arguably, perhaps it's good for communism. Wearing a mask is dehumanizing and humiliating, particularly wearing a mask against your own personal will. Conditioning our children, sorry. We're teaching our children they are not worth seeing, and we are reducing them to faceless blobs. It's shameful, and I believe it's criminal. This is why I rebuke the board's authority to force mask the children of our community, and especially my child, who has never and will never wear a mask under the authority of the school outside of my explicit permission. To take one step further, I consider any adult who wants to mask my child against her and my will a threat to my child. It's my parental duty to protect her from such people. This stance may seem extreme to some, but the irony is what's really extreme is complying to the practice of putting a mask on your kid when you do not agree with it, allowing strangers to have higher authority over your own child than you. That's extreme behavior. This is why I encourage other parents to take a stand against the board's unlawful mandates and quit allowing the school to mask your child against their personal will. It is not only wrong, illogical, and undermines your parental authority, it is psychologically and even physically harmful to your child. Rest assured, masking children for 5 hours a day or more, 5 days a week, particularly the young children as young as 5 and even 2 in our preschools, has many known harmful consequences and 0 helpful ones, regardless of how many times the word science is thrown around. Any intelligent person knows masking a child is not good for the child. It wouldn't even have been a debate 2 or 3 years ago. For the sake of those among us that still need convincing, let me share some findings from a recent study. In a study done earlier this year of over 20,000 school-aged kids, There were 24 distinct health issues reported and 17,854 health complaints. The most common complaints are increased headaches, difficulty concentrating, drowsiness and fatigue, malaise. Nearly a third of children experienced more sleep issues than they had previously. A quarter of children developed new fears. The study also found 29.7% of children experienced shortness of breath, 26.4% experienced dizziness, and hundreds of the participants experienced accelerated respiration, tightness in chest, weakness, and short-term impairment of consciousness, plus all the psychological effects we discussed earlier. Now I have a quick message for the parents. Regardless of what the school board votes, you do not have to comply. Reach deep and find your courage. Reignite your authority and do not allow these strangers to put a mask on your child. Show your child they are worth fighting for and stand up for them. I've made sure that my daughter is safe from the administration's authoritarian overreach, as my duty is as her parent. My daughter knows the school does not have the authority to force her to harm herself against her will. While she is not defiant nor disobedient to authority, in fact, she's quite respectful, she rests in the knowledge that I am the ultimate authority over her and will move mountains to keep her safe and free from abuse. This gives her the confidence to navigate a confusing world and to recognize she has a right to her own personal authority. As she grows, she can claim that personal authority more and more until she's fully capable adult who's able to stand up against tyranny.
30 seconds.
By learning not to comply now, she's able to recognize the foolishness that pervades the environment around her, and she can be in this world and not of it. Therefore, parents, I say to you, stand up for your rights no matter what. Stand in your authority and set an example for your children. Do not blindly comply and follow arbitrary rules. Teach them freedom is worth fighting for and show them how to do it. The amazing thing is, regardless of what the board decides to do today, if you decide to rebuke their authority, parents' choice gets restored for you regardless. Do not give them a power they do not have.
Our next speaker is Jessica Lampman.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to first start off by bringing attention to the admittance of parental rights being stripped from Madison parents. At the Open Candidate Forum on Saturday, October 23rd, the League of Women's Voters asked the following question to running candidates. In August, Angela Smith released a letter stating the district was allowing parents the right to choose whether or not to mask their children. By implementing a mask mandate, do you believe that right was taken away from parents? The president of this board answered yes. So this board willingly chose to strip parents of their parental rights based off of suggestions of our health department, not orders or laws. Your board president has openly admitted as a collective body to stripping parental rights from people within this district. Let that sink in for a minute. I couldn't help but notice that the same board members who voted for this mask mandate do not follow those same beliefs themselves. Various social media posts show it plain as day. Those of you who voted to implement this mandate in September should all be walking around town with a face mask on at the grocery store, indoor events, etc., and showing just how supportive you are of this mandate. How come it was so easy for this board to call an emergency meeting and put our kids into masks, but then 3 days later, when the quarantine guidelines change, you opted not to hold another meeting to lift the mandate? That's not a question, it's just a statement. I don't expect an answer. You wouldn't even entertain the idea until this evening. There have been far more cases since the implementation of the mandate. This mandate does nothing unless all neighboring districts, businesses, etc., are following the same restrictions. It makes no sense. I understand some folks are immune compromised, and this is a sensitive topic. I'm one of those people. I am immune compromised, but I do not insist that everyone around me wear a mask. I do not believe others need to wear a mask to make me feel safe. If I have to insist someone wear a mask, then I shouldn't be there and I can take myself home. I'm not going to try to take away someone else's personal choices and freedoms, just as that this board has done. I'd like to touch base on remote learning. There is word around town that this board may be implementing remote learning due to the number of rising COVID cases. I want to be clear when I say most children do not benefit or learn from staring at a computer screen outside of a classroom for hours on end. Some kids just flat out cannot learn by staring at a computer. They need to be in the classroom with a professional. If you choose to fail to allow our children to receive proper educational opportunities within the classroom, that would be a huge mistake. I don't see that that would be a smart decision. I brought my son here with me today. He's a middle schooler. He does not wear a mask. He knows that I'm immune compromised, but I wanted to bring him not to expose him to anything dangerous or adult literature or adult words, but to show him that there are people showing up and fighting for him to be allowed to go to school and all these extracurricular events without a mask on. Because a lot of kids at home don't feel like anyone's fighting for them. They're just being told what to do. You got to listen, and that's that. With that being said, if a student has to wear a mask in a classroom, why are they allowed to go onto a football field or a wrestling mat or a basketball court and then go ahead and participate in sports without a mask on? It doesn't make sense. So it's hard for me to put all of my trust in a board of educators or administrators when you're making these types of rules and regulations to try to keep our kids safe, but the rules don't make no sense. Anybody with common sense can see that. You got to wear a mask to sit in this classroom, but you don't have to wear a mask to have your face pushed up against this other kid's face on a football field. Make it make sense. I can't wrap my head around it. With that being said, Mike, you've been fantastic. Loved having you on the board, and I'm glad that you are speaking up for parents to take an active role and actually show up. Because I know as a board for you guys, it's hard to work with the community and make people happy and answer questions when people don't show up. I mean, we have a pretty decent-sized community. This is sad. For the amount of people online that are upset and up in arms over things going on, they should be here. So I think that's a pretty big wake-up call, in my opinion. So that's it.
Thank you. Jason Fabian?
Hi. I do appreciate those that did respond to my email. It would have been all right to maybe have a little bit more discussion, but a confirmation of the email was fine, I guess. I'm just here to advocate for continuance of the return to school plan as it stands, not to change it. We're still in a pandemic, obviously. The reality is kids that are in elementary schools also live with kids or could possibly be living with kids that are in high schools. The reality is obviously, transmissions do happen. And it was stated in August that you guys didn't have the authority to do it, that the state should do it. Obviously, the state has made different decisions, and it is your responsibility to keep your community safe. And I'm not sure exactly what some of the other information is that others might state, but I know that the reality is that we're in a pandemic, and to change now doesn't make a lot of sense. We've been in a position we were in a position back in August to do it in a way, although with smaller classrooms and not being able to actually distance and do the things that we need to do to try to stop it and try to squash it so it'll be gone for good, or at least gone so that it becomes like any other illness. The reality is we don't, and then we haven't had those other steps. Yes, there's been some changes in the quarantine policy. My concern is that if somebody is actually positive or has come into contact with somebody that's positive, people won't stay home. They're not going to wear a mask for 14 days. So we can't count on that, obviously. I'm just here, again, to advocate for continuing it the way it is. So voting no is the way to go. I appreciate your time.
Larry Armstrong.
I think it was turned off, Larry.
Thank you, Pastor Mike, for all your dedicated service on this board. In my time serving with you, Your words of wisdom and your reassuring tone really meant a lot, and it did a lot for the board, and I appreciate it, and I think a lot of people appreciate it. I was going to add something about the COVID and masks, but it's all been said, and I'm quite tired of hearing it myself, so that's all I got.
Warner and Mendenhall? No. Okay. All right, that'll conclude the public participation portion. Move on to board action.
Look, Sean, Vicky, Mad Bath.
Oh, did I
thought-
skip, sir?
Yeah, you did.
My fault. Sorry, Victoria Nadbath. I didn't mean to do that. I apologize.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Victoria Nabath. For those in the room who do not know me, I am a lifelong Madison resident, a Madison alumni, an elementary teacher in this school, and I have a young son who attends Madison schools. And so I speak to you again today as a parent and a community member. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, and with all sincerity, I would like to express my thankfulness for all the advocates of children who have joined me in this room, so thank you. Though we may have differences in what we present, I know we are all speaking for what we believe is best for our children, and it is my hope that we can find a way to work together and keep our children safe, healthy, and in school. To the board, the last time I addressed you, I showed the Swiss cheese model of a multi-layered defense against COVID-19 that the Cleveland Clinic shared, which includes the 5 layers that I do want to remind you of: cleaning and disinfecting, hand washing, physical distancing, masking, and the COVID-19 vaccine. At the time, we had an optional mask policy, and vaccination was not an option for Madison students like my son, who is under 12 years old. That left our students under 12 with only 3 possible layers of protection. That was increased to 4 layers when you required masking for all of the September 7th board meeting. Since then, children under 5, like the majority of our Madison preschoolers, still do not have the opportunity to get the COVID-19 vaccine. However, children ages 5 to 11 have been given the ability to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Those 5 to 11 who have chosen to get the first dose are so close to having all 5 layers of defense. Today, you will decide if we will keep our mask requirement, making the full 5 layers a reality, or make masking optional, resulting in those children being back down to 4 layers of protection, and others who choose not to get the vaccine down to 3 layers, or even 2 layers in cases when distancing is not possible. I do want to thank you for the recommendation that you're giving today to keep the mask requirement for children under 12 until after winter break, because it is so important for the families like mine who want to take advantage of that layer of protection to have time to get their children fully vaccinated, so thank you. I encourage you to ensure that the preschool children, though, also have the same opportunity to get vaccinated before there are any changes for them. However, I still want to remind you that because no single tactic is 100% effective, it is important to use as many measures as possible together to add those layers of protection. I am going to ask you a similar question to what I asked you last time. Is this recommendation doing absolutely everything in your power to keep our students healthy, safe, and in school? While you think about that, I will leave you with some information from the CDC's guidance that was updated November 19th.
The CDC recommends that even fully vaccinated people wear a mask indoors in public if they're in an area of substantial or high transmission. So are we in an area of high transmission? Their COVID data tracker lists Lake County's community transmission as high, and they state, and I quote, "Everyone in Lake County, Ohio should wear a mask in public indoor settings." We are standing and sitting in a public indoor setting right now. You listen to the health experts every step of the way in regard to school quarantine guidelines. As those guidelines changed, you adjusted them. Please be proactive and follow the guidance of the health experts in regard to masking in schools, and wait until they give the green light to unmask. When all of our students have the opportunity to be fully vaccinated, and when the community transmission is low so that we can stay safe and stay in school. Thank you very much.
All righty. Warner Mendenhall. I know you just arrived. I'll just let you know that we have 5 minutes per speaker, so.
Do I use the microphone?
Sure.
I literally ran from the parking lot into here. I'm not, this school board.
Can you hold it up?
Okay, I'll hold it up. Is that better?
Yes, please.
My name is Warner Mendenhall. I'm an attorney. I'm based in Akron, Ohio. And basically, you know, the coronavirus has obviously created a crisis last year, but now it's created a crisis for our politics, for our schools. You know, it's created a crisis in our media. We don't know who to trust. There's a lot of misinformation, disinformation that is going around out there. And, you know, one of the things that I've always been concerned about in my practice is institutional behavior. And part of institutional behavior here in the United States are institutional limits. As we grow up in school, we learn that we have a government of limited powers. And we understand, or have understood, I think up until now, that government needs to stay within the bounds of those powers. And it leaves a lot of room for our families to make family decisions about how to raise their kids, about the health of their kids. And it provides processes for us when we want to expand government power to do that at the election box and otherwise. But particularly under the corona crisis, I guess, we are seeing an expansion of government power that we've never seen before. And initially we saw it in local governments with the lockdowns of our communities, where you weren't supposed to go to work anymore. And you know, in my town, they limited the number of people that could go to Thanksgiving, and I argued about that at the time, to limit what a gathering would be. And then at the state level, we saw the governor create all kinds of new rules and regulations, and we're getting those, a lot of those have been pulled back, though, by the state legislature. Thankfully, it stepped up and tried to define some new boundaries. And I've read, and we've corresponded with a number of school districts through the state, and you know, we understand the authority that some of the lawyers are advising you that you have under what is called Revised Code 331367. But when you read that section, and it does give boards of education some powers that relate to health, but it says that the school district may make and enforce such rules to secure the immunization of and prevent the spread of communicable diseases among pupils. So that apparently gives you some power to do something. And we have listed in the state legislature the power and the immunizations that are required for kids to go to school. We know all about that, and we know about those exemptions. But that law is actually, there's a limit to that authority. And there is some case law that we are using in our cases, and it says that This general authority that you had is limited, and it must be reasonable. It has to be guided by common sense and consideration of public policy manifested by relevant statutory, administrative, and decisional law. Well, the state legislature gave us some very relevant statutory authority this past summer. And what it did, it really limited local boards of health. Now you're saying, why am I talking about local boards of health? Well, I'll get to that in a second. It set limits regarding issuing of orders and regulations for prevention or
About
restriction
1 minute
of
left.
disease.
Sorry.
So that regulation of the departments of health, they are themselves limited. And the way the schools are instituting mask mandates and perhaps other mandates is way beyond the powers of even a Department of Health. So the state legislature has decided that even Department of Health, they can only issue these orders for people who have a disease or have been in direct contact with someone with a disease. So a mask mandate, you know, this is a medical device. It's affecting our children. It's making a medical decision about kids and what's to go on in schools. We know these children are not likely to have any adverse problems with contracting coronavirus. We also know that the masks that we're using, I see the variety of masks up here, they're not N95 masks, which may have some connection.
I'll give you 30 seconds more to finish up. I know you came a long way, but I have to be consistent with the rules that we follow.
Let me tell you, I'm thankful I got here. I had missed calendar, so thank you. But you know, the masks that you're using, you can see that they're not working. The air is going in and out. It's not having an effect. But the point is that you cannot mandate a medical device for these children. And anyway, it's under an emergency use authorization, which parents have every single right to refuse it, period. And you know, to take away that right and to exercise this power outside of your power, beyond the power that's even being exercised by boards of health, I would say is beyond the limit and outside the scope of this Board of Education. I greatly appreciate the time here. I have a lot more I could say if you have any questions.
All right, I'm going to read this again. This is the board action before the board. So I'm looking for a motion to modify the Return to Learn plan to include optional masking in Madison Middle and High School for students and visitors beginning November 29th, 2021, and North and South Elementary Schools beginning January 5th, 2022, with masking being optional at board meetings.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
So, Sean, the parents understand that all mask comes off January 5. Parents do understand that,
Preschool.
even for elementary age.
What about preschool?
So this is buying time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's buying time for parents. 2.5 weeks. Okay. So they can come back after Christmas break without a mask. We're just real clear on that. Okay.
That's the motion.
Okay.
Are there any other discussion amongst the board? Did you have something else you want to say?
Well, I'll wait until I call for a vote. And I guess.
Well, this is discussion, then it'll be a vote.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is hard for me because I don't like to be contrarian, and this is heading in the right direction. All parents, this is heading in the right direction. I guess if you wanted masks to continue on into February, March, and April for the rest of the school year, that for the elementary age, that's not going to happen. It will be optional. However, this is hard because the light's at the end of the tunnel for all parents, and I think most people can hopefully or should be able to accept something when you see the light at the end of the tunnel. And because my friend Sean Douglas, the president, said he would still love me if I voted no, I just want to share some of my. There's still concerns. And I know that this is done for the safety and security of our children, but it's the same. It's just what we've heard, the same old arguments involving the limitations of masks, the inconsistency of the way that children will handle them on their faces, pulling them down and adjusting them. We've had teachers vaccinated and wearing masks in classrooms. They still contact COVID. Most of society is mask-free, and I think that's what concerns me. Children still remain the least affected. Many parents will not vaccinate their children. And those parents who wish to send their children to school with a mask can still do so, honoring the freedom of maskers and non-maskers. Furthermore, other school districts, I believe this is correct, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Perry makes masking optional. So I'm personally disappointed. I thought we would come back and vote. So I like it because the end is at the end of the tunnel, but I don't want any masks to start right now. So that's my opinion on it.
All right, so I'm just going to comment on this. Folks asked what the rationale was. You know, as board president, it's my job to talk individually with my colleagues in order to get a consensus as to what the will of the board is, whether that's my will or not. You may remember a couple of months ago, I sat in this very chair and brought something forward that I voted no on, but I have to move the district's business forward as board president, whether I agree individually or not. So the rationale is that our middle and high school students are able to go mask-free. The elementary schools, this would give those parents who do want to give their children the vaccine, they would have the opportunity to do that before we return to school after the holidays. That's the rationale. Much like Pastor Mike, I mean, I would prefer to have a mask optional policy tomorrow, but I am going to vote yes, and the reason I'm going to vote yes is because this is a huge step in the right direction. It means that the very next school day, our high school and middle schools will be mask optional, and within about 2 more weeks of school, the elementary schools will be mask optional as well. So that's why I'm going to vote yes for it, because it's not everything I want, but it's much of what I want. And it's everything I want in January, so I'm not going to, vote no. And, in the end, what that would leave us with is our required mask policy. So I'm not going to vote that way. Is there any other discussion before we take the vote? All right, roll call.
Michael Howry,
I'm going to vote no. Not
Michelle?
because I want the mask policy, but just going to vote no. Sorry.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 3-1.
Reports and recommendations of the treasurer.
Thank you. Now what you came here for tonight is the 5-year forecast. So first, the 5-year forecast is something that we're required to do by the end of November, and by the end of May, we have to do a May update. If you recall last year with all the funding that we were getting and the way it affected the schools, I did one in February. That isn't typical. So I sent the forecast to the board last week with my assumptions, and I'm going to go over a little bit of what those assumptions are. So the financial forecast, which again will be put on the website after, if it's approved tonight, and after it's submitted to the Ohio Department of Education tomorrow. So the financial forecast includes 3 years of historical data and 5 years of projected data for the district's general fund. Does not include the other funds such as debt service, capital projects, food service, the joint financing district, state grants or federal grants. First year of the forecast is the current year, and then we forecast out 3 more. So some of the line items, and also, come on, this is good stuff. Also, the format that I use is the one that's prescribed by the Ohio Department of Education. I'm not a big fan of it, but that's what we're required to use. So first, the general property tax, a revaluation occurred this year, and it'll affect the tax revenue beginning with the year January 1st, 2022. Although you might see a significant increase in your value, that'll have a very small effect on the school district because the majority of our levies are fixed sum levies, so as the values go up, the millage goes down, we collect the same amount. And that's true for almost all the millage except for 4.85 mils of what's called inside millage. So I don't know exactly what that increase will be because we haven't been given the numbers. We usually get those early December. I have included the effects of a 14% increase and how that affects the inside millage and how that generates a little more money for us. Contained in this forecast, as in all prior forecasts, there is some additional revenue for new construction. But you have to remember a lot of the new construction happening in this district takes place in zones that are either 75% abated or 50% where the taxes aren't paid to the taxing authorities. They're redirected into a fund to pay for infrastructure improvements. And while there's new construction being planned at State Route 528 and Interstate 90, actually they're doing the groundwork now, those values are part of a tax abatement zone, meaning you take the value of the property, multiply it times 75%, and they don't pay tax on that. Once completed, the additional development will generate very little additional revenue for the district. At one point, I calculated the effect of $10 million in investment in that area would generate about $26,000 for the district. While that seems like a lot of money, our general fund is between $27 and $28 million each year. So the other big line item for revenue is it's called unrestricted grants and aids. It's more commonly referred to as the state aid. Starting in this fiscal year, the district might be receiving additional funding from the state because of the passage of parts of the Fair School Funding Plan. It was not passed in its entirety. It was just passed in parts. Big change. The plan now funds the districts for where the students are educated, regardless of where they reside. So a student who resides in and attends the Madison Local School District, as well as those that attend from another district through open enrollment, are funded at the same amount. The Fair School Funding Plan could result in additional funding, but the details have not been made available since the budget bill was passed on July 1st, 2021. They originally told us, we'll let you know in October, so we can include it in the 5-year forecast. As October got close, they said, we may not be able to tell you till December. It's November 23rd, and they haven't told us. So, and also, while the Fair School Funding Plan, as originally proposed, had a 6-year phase-in, only the first 2 years are part of this budget. Future legislators may vote to either continue the phase-in, not continue the phase-in, or completely change the funding formula. So I use the amount that they said would be the minimum, which is basically what we got last year, and then make the adjustments for no outgoing open enrollment, no outgoing charter schools, but incoming open enrollment. And that's the amount I used for all 5 years. I will tell you if there's a significant increase or decrease, I'll be back with a new 5-year forecast for this board to approve in advance of the May. But I hope we know soon. Imagine having to go through half a year without knowing not knowing exactly how much 50% of your revenue is, and that's where we are. And the state also expects us to say, not only don't you know this year, you've got to guess at the next 4 years, and we're not going to give you any idea on what that number is going to be. So the next line is all other revenues, which includes investment earnings, proceeds from rental of the district facilities, pay to participate fees, tuition from other districts for special education. That's different than open enrollment. Open enrollment students for the last 3 fiscal years only, casino revenue and workers' compensation premium rebates. Again, major source of funding has been changed on how they account for it. So if you look at the forecast, you'll see my other revenue line item was $3 million last year. It's down to 1.1 this year because of those changes in the funding. It just gets moved to a different line item. It now gets moved up to that state funding line. So the expenditures as a result of the passage of part of the Fair School Funding Plan, not only was the revenue changed, but again, the expenditures were also changed. No longer have a deduction for outgoing open enrollment students and charter school students. We're going to get that money directly from the state as opposed to the other districts. Another change in between the years is we don't get student wellness and success funds anymore. They've built that into the formula. So you'll see some of our expenditures just going a little crazy because in prior years we were able to send some salaries and benefits to that other fund and not pay for it out of the general fund. Now they've come back into the general fund. And they're significant dollars. 2 years ago, it was about $570,000. Last year, it was $793,000. So those are now expenses that are being picked up by the general fund. The next item is the personal services, and that's just the fancy word for salaries of the entire staff. Salaries that are funded out of or paid for by the Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER, have been removed. So last year and this year, we took a group of salaries and didn't pay for them out of the general fund. We're paying for them out of this ESSER fund. But past this year, those funds are gone, so they're back into the general fund. So you'll see the expenses moving up and down on that also. And then again, the last 2 years, we've paid some salaries out of the student wellness and success funds, which are now brought back into the general fund because those funds were not renewed as part of any budget. Employees' retirement insurance benefits, that's for the fringe benefits, health, life insurance, state teachers' retirement system, school employees' retirement system, the two employee retirement systems that our employees pay into, and as employers, we pay into it also. There's also $90,000 that was brought back into the general fund that was paid for out of the student wellness and success funds. And then finally, purchase services, which is the word for any service that we don't provide through an employee that we have to go to somebody else to get. Insurance, therapy, fuel, all that type of stuff. Gas, electric, water, sewer, phone, garbage. Community school and community school came out the last 3 years. Post-secondary is paid for by the district. The parents don't have to pay, the school district does. So while it's free for the parents, it costs the district and we have to budget for our students going to college. Property, fleet, liability insurance, equipment rentals, and postage. So last year and the year before, about $470,000 of those types of funds were paid for out of the student wellness and success funds. Those are again pulled back into the general fund. And I talked a little bit about open enrollment no longer being a deduct and charter schools no longer being a deduct. So now you'll see that that line item is actually going down. So this was all put out in much more detail in my assumptions. So if you ever read the forecast, go beyond the numbers and read the 4 pages of assumptions, and that will help you understand the 5-year forecast of this district. It is a moving target, especially when, again, the Fair School Funding Plan has not been finalized. But like anything else, you know, things get more expensive during the year that we can't plan for. Special education is usually the big budget variance. Kids come in that have severe needs, or kids leave that have severe needs. It affects our budget both ways. So that's it. Again, once it's approved, I'll file it tomorrow with the Ohio Department of Education and try and figure out how to put a link on our website so the public can see it. Are there any questions from the board members?
Yeah, I have a couple, Mike. So College Credit Plus, could you explain how that works? Do we get any money from Lakeland or any other institution in order to offer those classes? I know the only ones we offer at the high school are Lakeland classes. Could you explain whether we get any money and how that money flows? I know you talked about it in post-secondary. I want to call it College Credit Plus.
Yeah, sorry, post-secondary is the old term. It's College Credit Plus, and we get no money in. All we do is put money out. We have favored nation agreements with a couple of the colleges, Lakeland and Kent State. Go Flashes.
Could you explain what a favorite nation agreement is?
It allows us to have a lower tuition rate and a lower book rate. So we pay per credit hour a certain dollar amount and then a per book amount based on the credit hours, not based on the actual cost of the book. So more often than not, that is much cheaper than us having to reimburse for books. What used to happen is the students would go to the bookstore and say, I'm a Madison student, here's my books, we'd get a bill for it. Now, if that student has taken 3 credit hours at Lakeland, we know that we're going to pay $105 for the books. It's $35 a credit hour. But again, no money coming in, all money going out.
All right, and this has come up in numerous boards I've been on. Generally accepted accounting principles. The auditor typically will have a citation in our audits saying that we don't file our reports on generally accepted accounting principles. We file on cash. Can you explain that?
Sure, that's something that's been going on since long before I got here. And as a CPA, you know, I think everybody should file on GAAP except for when it costs us money to do it and it has no useful purpose. We file on cash. People understand cash. Cash coming in as revenue, cash going out as expenses. When you file on generally accepted accounting principles, you have to take into account your revenue when earned and your expenses when incurred. Not when paid, but incurred. So that makes not only the preparation of the financial statement much more time consuming, it also drives up the cost of the audit. I talk to the auditors frequently about this, and again, I did this year. And the cost of the audit alone would be another $15,000, and I don't know offhand how much the extra preparation fee on the accountant side would be for the GAAP statement. My guess is between the preparation of the statement, the additional audit, and the additional staff time, we're looking at $25,000 extra. And it really doesn't get us anywhere. We've issued, prior to me getting here, we issued $22 million in debt with cash basis statements. Since I've been here, we have issued between $1 million and $1.5 million each year in notes with a cash basis statement. 2 years ago, I refunded part of the debt issue that built these buildings, the $9 million part, with cash basis statements. The only difference between the audit letter with a generally accepted accounting principles prepared statement and one with cash basis is you didn't prepare it according to generally accepted accounting principles. It provides no more certainty on the financial information. It is purely just one of those things that we have an edict to prepare them that way. We're not doing it because it doesn't make financial sense.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, we're ready for recommendations.
Thank you. So the first one is to approve the financial reports for all funds, fund-to-fund transfer report, and the check payment register for October 2021.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0. Next item is to approve the 5-year forecast for the fiscal years 2022 through 2026 as presented by the treasurer.
I'll move.
I'll
Se-
sec-
Oop, go ahead.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0. And the next items are to accept a generous donation of $1,000 from Gary Skoke to North Elementary School to be used for Santa Streaks, and a generous donation of 6 turkeys from American Legion Post 601 to North Elementary School, South Elementary School, and Madison Middle Schools to be used for families in need.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Thank you. Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Reports to the administrative team.
Yes, we have a couple items this evening. Mine are related to, I think what's no news to anybody. There is a employment shortage, employee shortage in all areas in Lake County, and the schools are not exempt from that as well. And so we have a couple items on the agenda tonight that address that. And I want to talk about the motion about the substitute requirements. Back in October, the legislature gave us some statutory relief from the regular substitute requirements that will allow us to hire subs that we see fit with high school diploma, actually pass the background check and meet the standards that we set, which would be an interview. We aren't just going to let anybody come in and teach off the street. We are going to screen those candidates that we are going to temporarily certify. And it's only good through the end of June. So we're really looking for probably, by the time we get this started, it'll be half a year. Because, you know, we're just approving this motion tonight, and it's going to take time to see if we get any people in the pipeline. And once we do, then we would, you know, bring them to a meeting to hire. We might be able to get a few by the December meeting, but, you know, it depends on how fast the ODE moves as well. But I just wanted to bring that attention that we're just not going to take a high school kid or recent graduate and put them in a high school classroom. That does not make any sense. That's not good for kids. That's not good for the people in that position. We want to make sure we're putting people where they belong and set up for success. But we have had, because of the number of infections and cases and some long-term sub-issues at the middle school last week, we were at a critical juncture where on Friday, people pulled off Herculean efforts to make sure classes were covered. And our staff should be applauded for what they were able to do at all levels. The other item then, as a result of the number of staffing issues, is if we get to a point where we aren't going to be able to cover classes efficiently, we would be able to call an asynchronous learning day. There is no plan to go remote at all. As I've said since August, my goal is to keep these doors open. Obviously, unless you get that calamity day, snow day, and all those types of things. But, you know, if we don't have enough teachers well enough to teach, and that can become a real problem, we have this as an option. It's not something we're going to use lightly, but that is also on tonight's agenda. And I want to thank people for working with us, the teachers, and the teachers in the last couple of weeks, and we have a few out here. They've covered classes to make sure that kids are receiving instructions. And, you know, there's a lot of work that goes into teaching. When they're giving up their prep time, they have to make up that time somewhere else. So that is the bulk of my report tonight. Any questions on this?
No.
Dave, you want to talk about the quarantine a little bit?
Sure. In lieu of the decision to move to mask optional, I wanted to just kind of go over some of the guidelines that will be in effect for when students come in contact with someone with COVID. So close contacts in school, and these are per the guidelines that were released by the Lake County General Health District on October 22nd. Close contact is considered 6 feet or less for a total of 10 minutes or more over a period of 24 hours. A student who comes in contact, a student who's identified as a close contact may continue to come to school, but they will be required to wear a mask for 14 days to prevent the spread. That's a little bit different for somebody who is exposed to COVID in the home. The belief is that the viral load is much higher on a person who lives with someone who has an active COVID case. So a student who lives in a home where someone has tested positive will continue to quarantine for the 10 days. However, they can take a test on day 5, and if it's negative, return on day 8. Our continued emphasis within our walls is to do contact tracing, and we'll be working with teachers when we discover close contacts or need to determine who might have been close contacts to someone who's positive. We are continuing to ask that classrooms be as social distanced as possible. Given that our rooms are about 30 by 30, we try to spread our desks out so that when possible, you're more than 6 feet, but that's not always possible. Of course, emphasizing hand washing, the sanitizing of the room and surfaces, and encouraging, if it's the parent's choice to have their children vaccinated, to offer those layers of protection. But that's pretty much how it looks with the new guidelines in effect. So I'll answer any questions if you have any.
I don't have a question. I just think that we need to let the parents know when we do sanitize the rooms, because we do it every Wednesday. Is that
Correct.
Disinfect the rooms every
Yes,
Wednesday?
we do every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And desks are wiped in between each class change. I do want to say, too, that today we had our first case of having to use test to play, which was another option that the Ohio Department of Health gave schools to keep kids that are negative for COVID-19 able to participate in sporting contests. So we're not canceling contests wholesale. So what happens is we find out about a positive case, the rest of the team tests. If they're negative, they can play in the game. Anybody positive, obviously, then is isolated following that protocol that Dave said. And again, in 5 days, we'll test the team again. If anybody tests positive, it is the same cycle. And that happened with our girls basketball team today. But we were we found one positive case in that testing, and everybody else was able to play.
And this will be going on around the state of Ohio. That is the Ohio High School Athletic Association stance on how you can continue to participate in events when someone on your team is tested positive.
And we called parents to make sure that they gave permission for their child to be tested.
And it was done with the school nurse.
Good deal.
Ready?
I'm ready. Under my recommendations this evening, because there's a lot of them, I'm going to do this. The Board of Education, we're asking you to accept the following resignations tonight. To accept with regret the retirement resignation of Denise Hale Elliott, Madison High School custodian, effective January 1st, 2022, after 25 years of service. To accept the resignation of Ann Culinary as Madison High School junior class advisor, effective November 4th, 2021. To accept the resignation of Heather Icks, special needs assistant at Madison Pre-K, effective November 15th, 2021. To accept the resignation of Abby Wincoop, teacher at Madison Pre-K, effective November 12th, 2021. We're asking you to accept the following employment and resignation, all in the same motion: to employ Elena McClure as nutrition services cashier at Madison High School for 3 hours per day, and to accept the effective October 19th, 2021, and to accept the resignation of Elena McClure, nutrition services cashier at Madison High School, effective November 17th, 2021. We're asking you to enter into the following employment contracts: to employ Laura Walters under a long-term substitute contract from November 1st, 2021 through December 21st, 2021 to perform the duties of Tracy Krim. To employ Penny Thomas under a long-term substitute contract from November 16th, 2021 through February 9th, 2022 to perform the duties of Sherry Blaylock. To employ Ryan Zavoda under a long-term substitute contract from November 16th, 2021 through January 4th, 2022, to perform the duties of Kitty Stout. The following person under a one-year limited contract is a preschool assistant, Summer Miller. Each of the following substitute teachers is approved by the Educational Service Center of the Western Reserve and/or the Madison Local School District Superintendent under a one-year limited substitute license, teacher contract beginning with Teresa Ackerman and ending with Elizabeth Davies. The following person is a casual day-to-day substitute, Karen Rydell. The following certificated personnel under a one-year limited supplemental contract for the 2021-2022 school year, Julie Beam, MHS class advisor, and Courtney Harriman, MHS freshman girls basketball coach. The following non-certificated persons under a one-year limited personal service contract for the 2021-22 school year, beginning with Chris Elliott and ending with Eric Cottrell. To employ Miriam Kuehl as a nutrition services helper at Madison High School for 3 hours per day, and to employ Heather Welch as a building substitute at a rate of $100 per day effective October 12, 2021. Oh, one more. And the board is amending the following employment contract of Tom Sanford, intervention specialist at Madison High School, to reflect a change in credit hours from BA 3 years, BA 160, retroactive to the 2020-21 school year.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question that won't be changed now, but Summer Miller, I noticed, is $880, and I'm sure that's factored into being the best that we can offer, but wow, that'd be nice if we could have some plans to...
Actually, Jovette has put some things forth in the last week for me to look at, and those recommendations should become forthcoming once we talk to Mike about finances and some of those things.
That's great. It just stood out because you had it there.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Roll call?
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
vote is 4-0.
The next item is a resolution under the employment of substitute teachers, and I'm basically going to read the section, Section 1. The Board of Education
Angela?
temporarily authorizes the employment of substitute teachers who do not hold post-secondary degrees as is otherwise required pursuant to Ohio law and regulations, including the Ohio Revised Code. Employment of substitutes during the 2021-22 school year. In addition to fulfilling the educational requirements adopted by the Board of Education, an individual must be of good moral character and must have completed all required criminal background checks, as well as obtained a valid non-renewable temporary substitute teaching license issued by the Ohio Department of Education to serve as a substitute teacher in the district.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
vote is 4-0. Angela, you need to go back for B.
Oh, did I miss something?
Yeah, we missed B.
Oh, yeah, we got to do that. My eyes, sorry. We are asking you to, also regarding to the substitute teachers, is to raise the substitute teacher rates, the substitute teacher daily rate from $85 to $90 per day, to raise the building substitute daily rate from $100 to $105 per day, and to raise the long-term substitute teacher daily rate from $100 to $105 per day, all effective November 29th, 2021.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, this puts us in line with Riverside now, right?
Correct, and Perry?
I had thrown it out there, but I never got anything back. Did we look at, raising it just slightly higher so that we don't have to compete with those other districts?
We're going to compete with somebody somewhere, so this is a good place to start to see if we get an increased pool between this and the other the resolution that I skipped, read before I did the rates.
Okay.
So,
All right, roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
okay, now the next resolution is the resolution declaring American Education Week, November 15th through 19th, 2021.
I'll move.
I'll
Se-
second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
All right, and the next is to adopt a memorandum of understanding between the Madison Local School District, Board of Education, and the Madison Education Association to address the use of asynchronous learning days as needed related to COVID-19 as found in Appendix A.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
And the next is Madison Public Library Board of Trustees to appoint Aaron Fabian as a member of the Madison Public Library Board of Trustees effective January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2028.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
And the next section is the first reading of the following board policy updates, beginning with 1617 weapons and ending with 8740 bonding. And all of these were required changes that were either made by the legislature or through our policy service that they recommended that we take.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
And finally, we have a pretty lengthy consent calendar tonight, but starting with to approve the program listed below as found on file in the board office as an educational option of independent study, and to approve the participation of the Madison High School student listed below under their respective approved programs for the 2021-22 school year. Personal financial literacy, cooperating teacher B.J. Tittman, student Jacob Keener. The next is to enter into an agreement between the Madison Local School District and Crossroads Health to provide behavioral health prevention, intervention, assessment, and treatment services to students and families for the 2021-22 school year, as per the agreement found on file in the board office. To approve a Niagara Falls USA trip scheduled for May 20th, 2022 for MMS sixth grade students. To approve the Washington, D.C. Gettysburg trip scheduled for April 12th to 14th for MMS 8th grade students, and to approve a trip to Columbus, Ohio scheduled for April 8th, 2022 for MMS 7th grade students. And then to amend the contract with Lake County General Health District for an increase of hours based on student needs.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michael Howery,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Brian Horvath.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
So we do have a need for executive session this evening. So I'd be looking for a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employees or regulated individuals, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee or regulated individual, unless such person requests a public hearing, and also to consider the purchase of property if
No.
what is it?
No, it's not, it's,
What's the number?
well, let me look, probably 5.
I'm sorry. So it's number 1 if you're on the agenda, and number 5. Number 5 is matters required to be kept confidential by federal law, rules, or state statutes.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We will not be conducting any business when we return from executive session. Roll call?
Michael Howry,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Brian Horvath,
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0.
Stand in recess.